Australia is largely known. However, often forgotten and overlooked are the history and the influence of these battlers in bonnets. And we'd like you tonight to listen quietly and follow carefully the stories of these women, our women, we women, whose lives were all about others being able to make something of their own. They left the vine-wreathed cottage and the mansion on the hill, the houses in the busy streets where life is never still, the pleasures of the city, the friends they cherished best. For love they faced the wilderness, the women of the West.
We were hardly out of the church when he turned to me and said, "You're the missus now." I said, "Oh, dearest, I hate that expression. I'm your wife." But he just shrugged his shoulders and said, "No, out where I come from, everyone will call you the missus, and you'll get to like it because it's special." It took us a week of travelling before we finally arrived at the station. Me covered in red dust and prickly heat. I can't tell you what it was like. No electricity, no radio, no telephone, no papers, and the nearest white woman was 70 miles away. I cried. I wanted to cry. I wanted him to send me home. But I loved that man, so I asked him where the broom was. It was nothing fancy, but it wasn't a humpy or a tent. It was wood and galvanized iron. So I was lucky. I papered the walls and put the rugs on the floor, but the rains ruined that. I unpacked all the nice things from my glory box, all the linen and lace, and little by little it looked like a home. I used to sew and read in the evenings, close up to a kerosene lamp. I suppose that's why my eyes are so bad now. I started a garden. In the droughts, when the water was scarce, I saved every little drop of my washing up water and put it on the roses. Everyone talked about my flowers. Whenever there were weddings or christenings or funerals, you would always recognize my big bunch of pink and yellow roses. They called that my little touch of the south. I didn't know anything about sheep or cattle or fixing tractors and engines, and often felt such a fool. I mean, how would you like to have to go into a machinery shop and ask 3 men for a male fitting for a 1/2 inch female end? I learned to make proper damper and salty beef, stitch up dogs and horses, potty the calves and feed the chooks and the pigs, and grow a lovely big vegetable garden down the back. There was only so much beef you can eat, you know. My first baby was born on Victory Day during the war. They were so drunk they had forgotten to turn on the generator on, so there was no light. The doctor came in the next day and thanked me. We were the only ones in town who didn't have a hangover. When the big drought came, we walked the verandas night after night, watching the storms, hoping and praying that one would come our way. But after a while, the lightning faded and there was nothing. We sold off half the mob, and my husband took the breeders away. He was gone 2 years. I remember the dust storms that blew in every day, and the plague of rats that arrived from nowhere in the middle of the night. They ate all my shoes, even the satin slippers I was married in. I'd paced around barefoot all day, scheming how to get even. I made up this lovely big stew of flour and cement. We shoveled them out by the drumload the next morning. The kids and I were looked after by an old stockman called Charlie and 2 Aboriginal girls, Eva and Janie. I couldn't tell you what friends they were to me. They taught me to fish and how to track and to go on long walks with them. I could even find my way home by the stars. And after a while, I started to see the land with an entirely different set of eyes. Parts of me never changed. Every Sunday afternoon, I used to dress myself and tidy the children and go for long walks, pushing the pram and singing. There were no shops, no fancy restaurants, but there were other pleasures. The first storm of the season, for instance, when you're slogged out a long dry, the whole family would stand on the veranda barracking, "Send her down, Yui," and we'd hug each other and dance. Somehow opened up the country and made it better for the next generation. The funny part is that when I first saw that country, it scared the living daylights out of me. I felt it was small and as important as an ant. Now I want my bones put down there, because I don't belong anywhere else. I'm the missus.
Or the horse this time? No? Well, is it colic or is it an injection you're looking for? When you work in the bush, as a bush nurse, it is very strange and strange things happen to you. But nothing fazed you. There wasn't any vet, but then that wasn't a problem because there usually wasn't a doctor either. You just roll up your sleeves and got on with the job and did the best you can, regardless of whether it was stitching up horses or whether it was delivering babies. When I was about 18, I decided that I would go nursing in the bush. My parents were strict Presbyterians, and as such I was brought up on a diet, a steady diet I might say, on John Flynn and the Royal Flying Doctor Service. Australia, when it was first pioneered, greatest fear was loneliness in the bush, fear of being lost or injured and nobody to find you. Thousands of men, women and children braved the huge expanse of this continent and many died. No one was there for them. Nothing happened. No flying doctor service. These people were simply forced to face the perils of the bush, and few of them didn't make it. Huge chunks of the continent were taboo to women and children, and as civilizations and settlements pushed further and further out, this has been borne out by the many stationed graveyards that are dotted around the countryside. I was sent to a small community in the north, and it was typical of most, predominantly Aboriginal community, and the rest of the people they were pastoralists, miners, itinerants, and their families. And the bush nurse, once again, had many roles. You were a cross-section of many things. You were a surgeon, you were a paediatrician, marriage counsellor. You did many things that were not counted as nursing duties. You are often Mike Tyson or Mother Teresa, and in fact, jack of all trades, master of some. There were a few things that happened out in the bush that really frightened me. Once there was a man in the DTs, and he spent the night climbing the walls, clawing at the gauze, kicking the doors in. And on another occasion that I recall, I foolishly tried to break up a domestic and ended up on the other end myself. You learn these things. But they weren't all bad. There were some good things happened as well. I helped to save a man's leg by splinting with a couple of broomsticks. We did a lot of deliveries by torchlight, and we did a few heart starts. And I learned very quickly to be an expert in bribing children with lollies so that they would have their immunisations. It was very difficult at night to land planes and flying. Often you had to talk to the fellow on the other end and convince him that his life was worth that of the patient you had. And you had to talk very hard to be convincing. We waited and watched the coming lights of the aeroplane getting closer and closer. I was holding this little girl, and she died in my arms. And I will never forget that moment, or the grief of those parents. But I'm married now, and my husband manages the store and the service station. But you never do forget being a nurse in the bush. And I was called on just the other day. There was another child had drowned in a bath. So while everybody was crying and screaming that she was dead, I got to work on the ground with his child, and suddenly she blew a big pink bubble. And honestly, that was the nicest thing that had ever happened to me.
They say some are born teachers, and some are made teachers, and some are just teachers in the bush. I always wanted to teach, even when I was just a girl and I was playing tricks on the headmistress and sneaking a cigarette down the back. But to me, there was something decent about it, and something I could do to give someone a better chance and help make the world a better place. My first job was teaching in a little town, the Wheatbelt, and the outhouse had been blown down in a windstorm, and the people there hadn't bothered to fix it. Apparently they wanted to see what I was going to do, because the poor lady before me had been too la-di-da for them, and she'd burst into tears and left on the next train. And I could see this was no time for the vapors, so I said, well, where do you all go when you want to go then? They said, oh, down the creek behind the trees, miss. And so I said, well, I'll be seeing you there, won't I? And the outhouse was rebuilt the very next day. And my next job meant I had to board with an elderly couple, and my bed was out on the veranda. And one morning I woke up and there were 5 emus peering at me in the face, and they were this far away, and I woke up and I screamed because I thought they were going to peck me in the face, peck my eyes out, and the old fella came out and said, now look here dearie, what's all the fuss about? They only wanted to see what you look like, no different than any other fellow around here. But I did grow to love that place. I was so proud of all those kids I was teaching, and teaching them about a world of oceans and elephants and aeroplanes that they never knew existed. And the highlight of their year was the school concert. And the dress rehearsal was held in a corrugated iron hall on a swelteringly hot day, and the children were almost fainting. But when the great day came, and the great night I should say, it was the one night that the pub shut, and everyone was there, and the children recited poems and told corny jokes and did circus routines. But if you pulled that concert together and if you didn't make fools of all the kids or the 50 people assembled there, then you were number one. And I ended up marrying one of the local boys there, and as we lived a fair way from town, I had to teach my kids. And after all my discipline, I ended up with a bunch of little outlaws just longing for the wide open spaces and the call of the stockyards. And we'd start school at 7:30 every morning, and we'd start with mental arithmetic and speed and accuracy tests, and I'd tear up pages of untidy work, and I kept up a constant stream of children's classics to the bedroom bookcase. And the pets would get to know the exact time of release, and they'd come trotting up the door as all the kids went whooping out to greet them. The highlight of our year was the School of the Air Sports, and I can't tell you the training that went into that. And as well, the CWA Christmas tree. And I'd dress my kids up as little angels, with old bed sheets for robes, and wings made from fencing wire covered with a mosquito net. And after that, they all went away to boarding school, and much to the pride of the bush teacher, on to university. And I thought then that my teaching days were over until the day one of our stockmen came and asked me to teach him to read. And so I started work all over again. And I read Dick and Dora books under the tree, put words like car and sugar and saddle all around the place. And I think he's going to be my best pupil yet. And do you know something? I wouldn't have missed it for the world.
I was down on your boundary the other day, and I saw you had a good few stories. You going to the races next week? Yeah, well, I'll see you then.
Queensland Country Line. They snapped me up straight away, sent a ticket, told me to get on the next train. Boss came into the station to meet me, and here I am, out in the middle of nowhere with my bags, and he walked straight past me. Then he turns around and he said, "Excuse me, miss, I come here to meet a young fellow off the train, but I don't seem to be able to find him. Don't suppose you saw him get off at some other stop along the way?" I looked him up and down. I said, "What's his name, mate?" He said, "Leslie Cook." I said, "That's me. See? Leslie, girl's name, boy's name." He looked aghast. So I said, "Well, can I still have the job?" He said, "But what can you do?" I said, "Well, I have willing hands and a willing heart." A couple of years later, he told me that I was the best man he'd ever had. Very funny. But you all knew me out there. I was the woman who worked a man's job. Daddy old clothes, hat and boots. You all made me earn your respect the hard way, didn't you? I never really held it against you, though. Probably would have done the same if I'd been a bloke. Few of you, I think you know who you were, tried everything you could to stop me, humiliate me. But I got there in the end, didn't I? Did it tough, but I always got there in the end. I was Edna Jessup, boss driver, at the age of 23. After my father became ill, I took over a driving camp, and with a couple of Aboriginal stockmen, I brought 1,500 bullocks across the continent, from Halls Creek in West Australia to Djara in Queensland. I got scared sometimes. Used to pray to myself. Get very close to God out there. I was Heather Mitchell, first female helicopter mustering pilot. The only time I wouldn't skip that magical little machine of mine through the hills and the trees was when you wanted to go and shoot brumbies, because that would make me cry. I was Nancy Bird Walton. Flew the mail runs through the thunderstorms and dust. Mostly seat-of-your-pants stuff too. And half the time when I'd step out of the plane, they'd say, "My God, it's a woman." I was the shearer's cook, up at 4 in the morning, stoking fire for the steak and eggs. I was the skinny little rouseabout in the dirty pink shirt, rolling the wool out on the board. I was Fiona Darcy, traveling hawker, taking my truck around the radios. Cougars, shirts and jeans, even some toys for the kids. I'm lost on the road now. Wouldn't change places for the world. I was Toots Holzheimer, driving the semis, ploughing through the bull dust on the Cape York runs. I changed the tires, prodded the cattle, blew the horn, and yeah, that was living. I was the wife of the dogger, the rabbit trapper, pardon? The roo shooter, the fruit picker and the mailman. And when our man was sick, or on the grog, I went out and did the job for him. The boss never knew. And when we scraped enough together for a block of our own, I went out and cut the posts to build the yard. 20 trees a day was my limit. Couldn't move. Chose to stay and keep the dreams alive. I was Margaret Webb, Mount Riddick Station in the Northern Territory. When my husband died, there really was no decision to make, because you left me so much to live for, so many ideals. I suppose that when I got on that train and went bush all those years ago, I really went there for myself. I love the land, love the life, love the freedom, and the challenge of it. And in the end, I came to realize that it belonged as much to me as it did to any man. And we opened it up, side by side.
I always knew how to keep my customers happy. There wasn't a pub in outback Queensland to compare to the Federal Palace Hotel. It had a real good feel to it, a real swing, and everyone loved coming there. I always used to dress up in the evening, dab of lipstick, lots of perfume. Got to keep up a standard, you know. The customers liked it. They often asked me how I got into pubs. Well, I'll tell you. I guess it started 20 years ago when I was living in a mining town. My husband shot through and left Bobby and me, and he was only 4 at the time. So I went to work to earn enough money for food and blankets in the winter, taking in washing and ironing, until I figured out there had to be an easier way to earn a living. I found out there were many other young women in town in the same situation as I was. So I rented an old house down by the river, and I got them organised. Of course, the hoi polloi used to say it was a house of ill repute, but that was a load of old rubbish. All my customers held it in the highest regard. I headed out bush with Bobby to make a fresh start. I landed a job as a barmaid in the Federal Palace, and that was that. I moved in with the fellow who owned the place and got it up running properly for him, which is just as well because the grog got him soon enough. Honestly, he was like a kid in a lolly shop. One day someone came into the bar looking for Felsie, and I said, "Oh no, he's not working in the bar today, he's far too dirty, I've got him working in the kitchen instead." The summers out there were real hot. Felsie struck upon the idea of moving his bed into the cold room with the vegetables, and they never lasted too long after that. But still, Felsie said it was him or the veggies, so we ate them canned after that. Anyway, he finally ended up getting really sick, so I took over properly. Coat of paint, barmaids, yardmen. I even put a lounge out the back for the ladies with a jukebox and a playpen, because I knew what it was like being left at home alone with the kids. They say hard country breeds hard people, but those people out there were the best. Sorry, those people out there, I'll get it in a minute. Of course, they were pretty wild at times. Used to ride into the bar on their horses, hang off the rafters, that type of thing. But when I'd had enough, I'd just clap my hands, and they'd soon settle down. Mind you, I had ways of dealing with them if they looked like giving me any real trouble. Dose of Epsom salts in the stew, and you wouldn't see hide nor hair of them for days after that. But I never felt guilty about that, because if there was one thing I couldn't bear, it was fights. I remember one time there was a real blue going on in the back bar after the rodeo, and the coppers came in and started beating up this poor little jackaroo. So I flew in and pulled them off, and they pressed charges on me, rotten buggers. So I stood up in court and I said, "Not guilty, Your Honour. I did not stick a safety pin into the left cheek of Sergeant Quayle. It was into his right cheek, and it was his backside, not his face." We had plenty of weddings in my pub, and christenings. I used to polish the silver, borrow the flowers, do the place up really nicely. I usually made the cake myself too. and I'd always cut off a few bits for the kids and put it aside. You've got to stick together out there. I'd always end up with a mob on my hands at the end of the season when the work ran out. They'd all come into town and drink their checks and have no money left for tucker. I couldn't bear to see them starve, so I'd give them a feed, and they'd end up doing odd jobs around the place for me in return. I think my record was 9 yardmen at one stage. And then there was the pensioners. Those poor old buggers didn't have a hope of getting work. I don't know, old dogs, children, and busted-ass stockmen. Still, if there's room in the heart, there's room in the house, I always said. And when they died, I'd make sure they got a decent burial, and I'd pack up their goods and chattels and send them to the next of kin. Least a woman could do. When I left out there, they gave me a really nice send-off down at the Shire Hall. There was a band and a proper tea. It was wonderful. I was really surprised to see those grown men cry, and they kept thanking me all the time, those people. But you know, really, it was me that should have been thanking them.
Hello? Hello? Anybody remember me? I remember you, Mob. When you first come to this country, you think this land was empty. But I tell you something. I was here a long time before you can come here, me and my mob. And I know a pioneer woman like this mob. We've been camped along at that waterhole. We've been catching barramundi and brim. We've been going to look for witchetty grub and congaberry. Bush tucker him proper good one. No white fella sickness here. All about this land, that season, he been come and go. And that heart, he been beaten all the time. First time you been come here, we've been high along at that hill. And we've been watch you go past with that camel and horse. Sometime we've been see you starve and perish. But when you've been come back with that cattle, there was no more water along in that waterhole. No more dreaming. Maybe there's some things we gotta forget. Like the blood on the wattle, the poison in the flour. Bad, terrible stories. But there's lots of things we gotta remember because I was there. I've been all of them. Old Mary, old Lubra, house girl at the homestead, drover's boy, mother of the stockman, mother of the children. And when you've been get me from that mission, you know that place they teach you gentle Jesus, meek and mild? You've been take me along in that station, you've been rag 'em up, leave, wash 'em up dishes. And I know this is my tribal land, but I never say a word, boss. Never say a word. Ah, you remember me now, eh? I remember a letter you've been write home, you've been say, no white woman here. Good men hard to keep. But I was the dark secret, black velvet, soft and warm. And you've been saying to me, the longer you're here, the whiter they get. Plenty of you fathered my children. That half-caste, that yellow fella. And you've been saying to me, no worry, mate, no need to call him son. Some of you stuck around and treated me good. But that government man, he been come and he been take all the half-caste children and put them in a home. Or make me howl like a dingo, cry for my child. But you gotta run real fast if you want to stick together. Otherwise, they put you in jail. Living there long in that station, that missus, she get real lonely. Where is she? And when all the men been go with the cattle, we been take her and show her the country. We been show her where the conkerberry and the yam been grow. That place, good place where you go fishing. We been go look for honey and that fat goanna. You remember that old goanna when he would run under your dress and you would start squealing with her? And we would laugh so hard, we would nearly die. She good missus too. She been teachers. Been reading, writing, and she been give us that music, that radio. And we been listen to that country music. And she been buy a pretty dress from that mail order shop. And we been make her bring her flowers and make her tea and toast and tell her we never want to work for anybody else. Long time since I've been to that mission. Long time since I seen my mother. But she good missus. We been worked the cattle too. In the Kimberley, up until 1930, half the stockmen were women. You didn't know that, did you? That Dame Mary Durack, in her book, she been say, she been talk about that stockman biddy. Stockman biddy, she been have pipe, she been have stock whip, and she been have R.M. William Drudges. Since enjoyed such status or sense of importance. Small-boned and timid-seeming, they soon proved themselves to have more endurance and intelligence than their men in the cattle game. But that's all over now. All past. All gone. Plenty things wrong. Plenty shame. Plenty deaths. But there are plenty good things to build on. And we got to look forward now. Because this is a big country and we have to learn to share it. But this is a story of only 200 years. As Aboriginal women, we want to tell our stories too. Stories from 40,000 years of dreaming. Stories of our land Australia. Stories for all of us to know and to share.
In the bush. Fits the correspondence lessons in among the 1,000 other jobs a woman in the bush has to do, like bleed the generator, bake the bread, tend the chooks. Late at night she does the books. Bottle feeds the little baby Joey the kids promised they'd look after. Checks the infant, has a cuppa, and then recalls she must be up at 6 to go to town to get the part to make the grader start. Turns her snoring husband on his better side, says, "Night-night, sexy," and wearily she tumbles into bed. She's about as soft as butter, as savage as tiger, as tough as rugged granite. If you jeopardize her children, you'll quickly wish you hadn't. But she'll laugh and lead the singing at the ICPA party, make the ginger beer, bake a sponge, run the street stall. Nothing special, nothing flash. Nice to raise a little extra cash, mainly for the flying doctor. You never know, it might be your turn next when you're living in the bush. And maybe once or twice a year, generally on her husband's birthday, organise a babysitter Just the two of them for dinner, all dressed up and looking gorgeous. And on her second glass of bubbly, she gets just a little woozy. And she looks into her husband's eyes and she says, "Ooh, I love you, really love you." And he says, "Shush." But she can tell he's feeling great, because as well as mate, he knows that she's his lover, and there could never be another, and they're sharing life together somewhere. Despite every adversity, traditionally women have showed that they won't be swayed by hardships, and although it will take time and money, it will be done. I'm now going to introduce to you, you know that some things only happen in Katherine and in the Northern Territory, and I'm now going to introduce to you two pioneer women auctioneeresses. Would you please welcome Petrina Miffett and Bridget Kameroff. Now, ladies and gentlemen, these gorgeous gals are going to auction articles from each of the pioneer women. Each of the pioneer women has put forward articles relevant to her role. These gorgeous gals will auction the articles. We'd ask you to bid high, relax, enjoy yourselves. Remember the cause. All proceeds of the auction will go towards the women's wing at the Stockman's Hall of Fame. Petrina, are you taking the microphone, darling?
Whatever you say, darling. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're not on sale. Coral Beatty. We're offering one blanket, original Billabong pure wool blanket, all-purpose outdoor, 5-year guaranteed rug, 6 foot by 3 foot, value heaps.
Sweetheart, thank you, Katrina. I suppose you feel like one of the Durex? Oh, you do. I know, Katrina. These graziers think that these men think they can do anything. They can auction you and do anything. Yes, and we'll show them tonight, won't we? The BB rug. Hey, I want a bit for the BB rug, ladies and gentlemen.
BB rug there. Those people will take it anyway. Goes the proceeds to ICPA. They're worth about $20, throw it in, $20, 20 bit, 20 bit. Yes! 20 bit, quick bit. So there are no ordinary pads. Stud crap. They will grow for you flowers. Well done, Terry. Okay, for the turds, I'm passing over to you, Bruce. And, okay, let's look around and see where we get the most crap from, Bruce.
Thank you, Katrina.
Get Warren to start at $50.
Oh, yes, he'd be the chief pad man in the town, wouldn't he? They are genuine stud pads from the biggest stud. We got $50 from the biggest stud in the territory. That 50 bit now. That $50 50 bit. Talk to him, Katrina. They don't realise the worth of these pads. Thank you. I got no inducers at all in these pads. That $50 a bit in the bits with 5. That 5 from Paddy Pad Buntine. That 55 a bit. That 55 genuine territory pads. What do they smell like, Katrina? Marvellous.
60.
60, we'll take it twice in a row. That's $60 we sell them out, make it quick twice. She likes them, she'll put her around.
Unfortunately, we're not offering rose bush tonight. We're offering a bunch of flowers. Roses. Righto, who wants to win a heart? Straight from the garden of the missus. The missus, straight from the garden. Beautiful blooms to gladden your hearts. A lot of crap. Hang on, I'll see if there's anything over the page. Yeah, I might have to get John Dyer up to read this about the bloody flowers. Or a... No, sorry, that's all we've got. That's all we're allowed to tell you. Unfortunately, rose bush is not available, but a bunch of flowers is. Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you, Katrina. Fresh roses. There are. These proceeds go to the women's wing of the Longreach Horse of Fame. There we are, in Longreach. Take it as you may. Proceeds go to a good cause. There we
and all the gins in it. It's the unwell. Kill sleepless nights.
If you're cooking the swag. Dear Tammy Way, good cause. Hello, we're having a good time again here, are we? Liven up, you pioneer men and women. $5 there, your call.
55 to John Biddle, that'll teach you to shit stir.
Goes to the women's wing of the Longreach Hall of Fame, Stockman Hall of Fame. Well-worthy cause. Next item on the agenda. You must be sick and tired of us standing up here. Did I see you in Robin Hood one year? Who's looking boring and uninteresting tonight, Katrina? We might be able to attach onto them. No, they're all looking boring and uninteresting.
We can't read this bit either. That's disgusting. The nurse. Soft and pliable and critically useful for blockages. That's disgusting. Zellon Bruce. Daphne.
I think you should sell these, Katrina. For all those wild stockmen, from VRD to the Barclay table answer, $2. Who's your mum?
Mike Back used to be with the MTC.
Mike Back from the North Jersey Film Association. We thank you for your donation. Is that the mic?
One red.
Val Dyer, Carol Armstrong, Beth Hollingsworth, Ros Andrews and Stephanie Hill. Roles every day of their lives, all rolled into one. The Mrs. Coral Beebe. Nurse Mark McLean. Teacher Sonia Hart. Worker Murray Lee Henderson. Publican Sally Warriner. Aboriginal woman Nellie Binjara. I'm going to give all these ladies a red rose, but please thank the auctioneer.
So you got 2 bottles of champagne, fellas. And obviously they knew what the prize was.
Underwood. Would you all clap?
Right, who's the first contestant, please? Right, what's your name, please? Mr. Alan Andrews.
Alan Andrews.
Where are you from, Alan?
West Australia.
Western Australia, right. And what do you do there, mate?
I run a few potties.
You run a few potties, do you? Good on you, mate. Right, are you ready to go? You don't have to tell us what you're doing. You can do both. You want this? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, direct from Western Australia, Alan Andrews. My God. There's a hole in the bucket. I was going to ask him to say a few words, but if he does, you don't know how long it's going to last, but we'll do it anyhow. Michael.
I'm just going to agree with Ken's sentiments tonight, where he reckoned it was a great thing to be with you people, and that's that. I wanted to see you bastards suffer for years, most of you people, because a lot of you have made me suffer. So I'm just getting pissed enough to want to sing. I can't sing, but I'm going to sing an Irish song. I did sing this once in Bar of Vandalua. You joined me in that, which